So that's the feedback we've gotten as a small business. That's the two people that we know that have actually tried to have a used car lot. That was the feedback they gave us. We weren't here.
Is that the city that's telling you this, or is
no?
That's what
the business owners.
The business owners are telling us. That is the perception that the city has when it comes to small businesses, and especially car lots.
That's just the perception of the previous business owners.
But you're selling a lot of cars. I mean,
we are. That's why we're saying there's a need for it. There's a clear need, but that need obviously isn't fitting the city's budget.
Well, we have to. I mean, really, we have to confine the discussion not to your business needs, but to the needs of the 20,000 people who rely on laws to keep this government functioning and to keep people, from doing the wrong things. And the laws, as they stand now, say that you can't have a car lot there.
Well, then the city should have followed the law.
You know what? Regardless of that, you should thank the city for making the mistake, not continue to ask for more and more bending of rules. Because
at this point, why would I thank the city for making me lose money? Why would I thank the city for me quitting my job because they said I could open a car lot?
Mr. Jones.
Just let it go.
Please.
Let it go.
I'm sorry. We don't want to be argumentative. We really don't want to be argumentative. I can tell you that, I think to Mr. Fotovich's point, we need to contain our conversation to new business item number 7 and not to the operation of your business on Mr. Singh's property. So, to get us back to new business item number 7, regarding the rezoning. Is there anyone else that has any further questions for Mike Hall?
I do. For Mr. Hall, actually. A couple things here, and just bear with me for a few. Have we done an analysis to compare how Gardner C2 zoning regulations compare? Are we more restrictive, less restrictive? Are we comparable to the surrounding cities? If someone were to go to Overland Park and look at their C2 zonings, would they find the same restrictions on used car sales, or some of the other restrictions that we have in place, or is it unique the way that ours is set up? Or has that not been something that...
We have not done that kind of analysis. I think when we look at our code, which we will be doing this year, and certainly after there's a comprehensive plan update, that's an appropriate time to look at that. That's a pretty large item to consider, but we have not really done that.
Okay.
I've been told that it's not unusual to restrict car sales in this way. I don't think this is unusual, but we have not really done that level of analysis.
Next question I had was, this is something at least has been in the public eye since March of this year, I believe. So that's given 6 months to 7 months. Have any of the neighboring landowners come to us and expressed an interest in being zoned as a C3, rather than the C2 that they currently are? The neighborings, the ones that are directly connected to this property at the moment. Have any of them approached and said, I'd like to also be considered as a C3?
No.
No. Okay. The next one I had after that was for the lot size itself. Is there regulations in place for the number of parking lots that are either required or limited within the site?
Parking stalls, parking spaces?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and what is that number?
Well, it's based on one parking stall per 250 square feet of floor area when you're talking about a retail use.
Okay.
So, off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly how many square feet are in that building, but there are several parking stalls in front of the building, and all but a few of them are required for that use.
Correct.
The other thing,
a limit though, and I have no doubts that they actually meet the minimums. It's more the maximum that I'm concerned with. Mm-hmm. So for the square footage at the facility right now, I have no idea what that happens to be. Is there a maximum number of lots compared to the parking area that's available for them? And is that something that should be considered within this, because the lot itself may have regulations in place that won't allow it to actually house, by regulation outside of the zoning, the number of cars to actually populate that as being parked.
Well,
whether that's the 4 cars, the 8 cars, the 10 cars, there might be beyond just the zoning.
First of all, let me restate that this application is for a rezone. And so to look at a site, one of the, the conversation tonight has pointed to the difficulty of discussing site conditions when we're looking at a rezone application. Rezone application doesn't require a site plan.
Right.
So this is really the wrong context for looking at the details of the site and what can be permitted on the site or not. I can still answer your questions, though, about the parking stalls. There's a certain number of parking stalls required for the gas station and the liquor store. There's also circulation needs on the site, and those circulation needs are addressed by the service drive standards in our parking chapter. Those service drive standards in the parking chapter in the zoning code apply generally to all zones for the most part.
Right.
So they don't change by zone. And again, just as a way to try to provide a service, honestly, to Mr. Jones, so he would know what to expect, we looked at the information we had on hand, and we tried to give him some understanding of how much space there would be for displaying cars for sale, given the service drives that are on the site, and given the other constraints. Keep in mind there's an access easement that's parallels the north side of the property, providing access to the back. That's also a constraint. So there are a number of constraints on the site, and so that kind of gets at the issue of how many parking stalls or how many cars you could display for sale on the site.
Okay.
That's for a special use permit, though.
Right.
So those are two different.
Absolutely. The last question I had actually directly relates, I guess, the what-if thing. So, council tonight, and if we do decide to follow the Planning Commission's recommendation and then decline, and then the Joneses go back and decide that they're not certain, that because of some of the uncertainties, they don't want to pursue the special use permit, would there be a way that the city could, understanding the uniqueness of the situation, perhaps extend their land use permit, not indefinitely by any means, but to give them an opportunity, because there would be an end date in sight, to transition the business, whether that is easing the pain that might be with possible closing, or looking at other opportunities for land and maybe exploring that a little bit with a little bit more clarity, understanding that's the direction they're going to have to go, whether that's extending it to the one-year anniversary from the date that we first reached out, which March 24th, and saying at that point that's when everything's going to expire and there needs to be resolution on the land. So it's a way to bridge the gap, so to speak, because the situation, I mean, I don't know that there's any way to deny the fact that the situation originally was created by staff and by the city itself. So this is a way at least to, and I also don't doubt that we've done a lot already to try to work with as much as we can. Staff is as limited by the regulations as the business is, but a way to at least extend ourselves to make an opportunity available to help them with that part of it. Because I don't want it to be a situation that doesn't really serve any of us to, sorry it failed, if you don't want to move forward with this, then there's that, but at least we could provide an opportunity to extend that a little bit longer to try to ease them into that transition. Not into, but through that transition. That's a long, complicated question. I apologize. I hopefully you understood what it was I meant.
Well, I believe that's a question for legal counsel.
If you deny the zoning tonight, that's the end of it. The question of when you enforce that and terminate the operation of the car sales, if they continue after it's denied, is a question of how quickly you want to enforce it. There's no authority to continue the use of the property if the zoning is denied.
Okay. That answers that question. Those were the questions I had.
I have two questions. One's a hypothetical, admittedly, and that, I'll just couch it in that. First is, Mr. Jones talked about McCarthy and coming in there, and obviously they're dedicated use, they'd be new and used cars, but would that impact any deliberation with regard to C3 rezoning for that property if a large auto dealer like McCarthy were to come in and offer new and used car sales on that property? That's the first question.
Okay. Yes, the sale of new cars, even if used cars are an accessory to that, is treated more favorably in the zoning ordinance.
If it's single use for that purpose only?
if it's single-use new cars, it would also be treated more favorably.
Okay.
Used cars are treated